Hi, it's Dave. I recently had an interview with Andrea James. She is a former Tesla analyst on Wall Street. Currently, she's the Senior VP of Corporate Strategy and Investor Relations at a company called Axon. After our interview, which I had published on my main investing channel, we had a conversation just to catch up, and actually we kind of got onto the topic of parenting. And I got a chance to share kind of some views of parenting and got to hear some stories on how she's dealt with her kids. And she shares a tremendously helpful tip in how she helped her oldest child overcome tantrums. So I wanted to share this excerpt of this kind of post interview conversation that I had with Andrea James. We weren't intending on recording it or publishing it while we're talking, but afterwards I thought it could be helpful for some parents and some people to watch. All right, hope you enjoy it.
Thanks for sharing about your childhood as well and some of the abuse. I can relate to a lot of that, and that's really. Have you ever shared that on YouTube before?
Yeah. I've actually started a parenting channel about a month ago. I've got about 7 or 8 videos up right now, but I started it because my upbringing was so just terrible. I had to rethink parenting from like first principles, like from just scratch. And what I came up with was like a completely different approach to parenting that I've never heard about really from any books or other people. And so I've just been kind of sharing that on this extra channel I have. And yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty
What is?
cool.
I mean, what's in it? Sort of. I'm
The,
so
gi-
sorry. I
the
know
yeah,
you
the
went
gist
through.
of it, the gist of the approach is what if you could parent a child without being this authority figure, without using punishment, without using shame, no bribes, no yelling, no cursing, no, forcing. And what if you could really parent a child in a way where you're their best friend and you're helping them and coaching them alongside them to understand the decisions they're making, but it's not like this obedience, compliance, rule-based thing, right? It's teaching principles. It's teaching, you know, it's and your core relationship with your child is not one of this authority, but it's one where you're just really enjoying each other, really just having fun, and um, the cool thing is most people the biggest reservation of that is like, how do you control their behavior? Like, how do you know your kids just don't go wild if you're not this authoritarian, figure in their life? And that's part of what I share about is like, there's so many ways to take advantage of of kids' ingenuity. Like they're so smart. And if you can help them by like showing them multiple timeframes of what their actions result in, and you can teach them actually, um, to to understand the consequences of habits and behaviors, and they'll catch on where you don't have to police them. And the funny thing is I started this when my first son was like a couple months old, and by 1 or 2 years later, I'm like, this is the best thing ever, because I've never had to yell at my kid. I've never had to, never punished my kids. I've never bribed my kids. I've never forced them to do anything. Like it's never a forcing thing, but I'm just constantly chatting with them, explaining things. We're talking about things, learning about things, and it's really this relationship of like friendship. And it's like it's crazy. It's just a complete different paradigm of parenting that I think if I didn't have my traumatic childhood, I wouldn't question parenting as much as I have, and I wouldn't have
Are you
come up with.
willing to this? This sounds to me like you have to be willing to let go of your vision about of like how a certain day will go, or
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kids aren't always on your program.
yeah. Yeah, it takes, no, it takes a lot. But what I thought was, I knew it would take a lot more time and energy to work with them, because so one of the core principles is to never violate their sacred decision-making authority. Like they need to be making the decisions, and I
Wow.
can't ever force them to make a decision that they don't want to do. Like they need to be the ones in control. And like I could persuade, I could try to like explain different things, but ultimately they're the ones who need to make it. And at first I thought it would be like so time consuming that like I wouldn't have anything. I couldn't have time to do anything else. What ended up happening was the first couple of years, it was pretty intense, but my kids are ages 3 and 6. And now our parenting is so much easier to do than any other parenting I've seen, like all my friends and everything, because my kids know what to do. Like they'll go somewhere to a store or something or outside. They just know exactly how to handle themselves because they're the ones making the decision. They understand everything.
They don't
Like
need to assert their independence. You've already given it to them.
yeah, we're at a restaurant. They already know like exactly what to do. There's no drama. They know like already like they want to eat healthy because they understand the concept of all that. And
Really cool.
yeah, so it's like it's so much easier. I think my parent like it's 5 times as easy right now my parenting as if I didn't do this approach. If I was still like if I followed a more like rule based obedience parenting, I would be stressed so much. I think.
My first doesn't accept that I have any authority. It just she just came out of the womb like defiant. And
That's my first. My first will anything I say he'll do the opposite.
yeah.
No.
And if you get into a battle of wills, you're just gonna lose.
Exactly. Yeah. He will last hours and hours and hours and he will not lose. It's impossible. Yeah.
Just,
and
I refuse to accept that you have authority over me. It's like
exactly.
You're this big.
yeah. That he came out like that, like my first too. And my key insight was that's awesome. That was my key insight. I was like, that's what I want to preserve, actually, I'm not gonna break him in. I'm not gonna try to like, fight him per se. I'm gonna work with him. And yeah.
But that's interesting because the world can judge that, because I've come around to that in different ways. And one of the things I say all the time in my house is we're prioritizing harmony. Nope.
Yeah.
We're going to prioritize harmony. And sometimes when you prioritize harmony, it means your child is eating with their hands. Oh, it's like, use a fork. No. What? And so like, you have to like be okay with that. I don't know how you would deal with that, but like, and we're beyond that now. We're at an age where it doesn't matter, but like, there was definitely a period of years where prioritize harmony meant like, I don't know, the table man. Like, there's just a lot of different things. I'm curious, do your kids go to bed? Like,
yeah. So there's all these techniques that I've kind of just came up with just myself because, like, for example, our kids want to obviously do things that are crazy that, like, for example, today, my 6-year-old has this voice recorder he plays around. He was blasting the voice recorder during lunch. My wife was like, turn it off. I don't want to listen to that thing during lunch. And my son is insistent. He will not turn it off, right? And my wife and my son are going at it, right? Saying, turn it off. He's like, no way, I'm not turning this off. And then I'm like, for me, it's so simple. So I bring up my laptop, I blast my laptop, and this is with a smile on my face, right? Because I'm like, with a smile on my face, I just walk up with my laptop, I blast my laptop, I play one of my YouTube videos at 2x speed, and at the lunch table, and my son's like, what are you doing? Stop it. I can't listen to my voice recorder. And then I'm going, I thought we were going to become a family that just brings their loudest things to the table. And that's what we're going to do. I thought you were teaching us what to do. And then he's like, I don't want that. Right. And then, so he leaves the lunch table. He listens to something. He comes back 2 minutes later with his voice recorder off. And I tell my wife, I'm like, this is like an example of how to fix these issues. It's like our kids don't need us to kind of, argue with them or reprimand them or tell them what to do. They just like, they're so focused on the now. All they can think about a lot of times is how it benefits them now, how they feel now. It's not natural at their brain, at the age of their development and where their brain is, to naturally think of others and the impact it gives to others. It's just not natural. And so I understand that. So I go, oh yeah, what you're doing is perfectly normal for what your age. And so what you need is you just need someone extra to come alongside and show you an illustration of how it feels of what you're doing to other people, right? And that's why I'll just like, and sometimes like he'll do something. I go, okay, do you want to be a family that does what you're doing? And he might be, let's say he's hitting somebody. I go, oh, are you teaching us? Are you saying that you want to be a family that hits each other? And so then we'll start to hit each other, like just my wife and I and my 3-year-old. We'll just start just like kind of half fake, half playing, but we'll just start like punching each other. And then he'll be like, no. And sometimes he'll cry and he'll say, I don't want to be a fighting family. And then he'll just stop like that. It's just like, it's so quick. And so I've gotten into this like routine where I'm able to so quickly pick up something to correct the behavior. Like for example, like if they don't want to pick up toys at late at night, um, I will not force them to pick up toys. It's completely their choice to clean up. But we've always cleaned up every night for the past 6 years. Maybe we might have missed one night. And the way I do it is I say, hey, do you want to clean up or not? And if they almost always say no, it's too hard. I'm kicking back, laying in the sofa. And I go, okay, that's fine. Let's just let's be a family that doesn't clean up, right? And then what we've done is we've like saying, do you know what a family that doesn't clean up looks like? What do they do? Like they don't clean up, let's say this week and next month and next year. And so we've shown them a lot of videos on hoarders on YouTube.
Oh my gosh. During homeschool time,
Yeah.
my daughter and I sit and watch hoarders.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I was like, no, you about to learn,
Yeah.
Yeah, we've sat and watched hoarders. It's completely changed behavior.
Yeah.
Also,
so
I would Google rotten teeth.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Yeah.
Early on with the brown, I was like, hey, I'm not going to make you brush your teeth. There you go.
Exactly. That's what we do too. We say, I'm not going to force you to brush your teeth. It's your decision. But let's talk about this and let's show you what happens, people don't brush their teeth. Before you know it, they're crying, begging to brush their teeth, right? But this is just the constant thing where they're always in control. They're always the one making the decision. I'm the one helping them to kind of illustrate, what different actions and habits, what kind of consequences they have over different time periods. Because that's their weakness. They don't know what the action they do right now, how it impacts others or themselves 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, 10 years. All they know is right now how it feels for them. Like they're specialists in just that. And so my role as a parent is to say, okay, that's natural, that's great. You want to do that, it feels good, whatever. But I know you're smart enough to understand that, there's like, here's examples, right, of what that action or that thing can do in 1 day or 1 year or to 100 people. Let's imagine if you're punching everybody you ever meet on the street and we do that as a family, like what's going to happen, right? And they're really smart. They can catch it so quickly. And that is the thing that adjusts their behavior. Like the punishment, the bribes, the manipulation, the yelling, all of that, especially for the determined, strong-willed kid, it doesn't help,
Yeah, this is interesting. My daughter, she's 8 now, and it's a lot easier at 8. But
yeah,
I remember even at like 4, we were walking to a swim lesson one day, and she wanted to put her shoes on. I was like, fine, you don't want to wear your shoes, but we're going to a swim lesson, so you're just going to walk. I thought she would change her mind, but the defiant little, she like walked the entire way to her swim lesson. We live in the city, we walk everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna step like on me. I was like, I'm like the worst mom. I'm now walking with my child barefoot, and it was fine. We got through it, but after that, she didn't do that. She wore her shoes. But you do sometimes have to live with stuff that I feel like is like. I have another question. Do your kids ever tantrum?
No. Like this shoe example, 2 days ago, my son, so he had these Crocs, these sandals that were too small. So 2 days prior, it gave him like this blister. And so we ordered some shoes. They weren't coming for a couple of days, but we needed to go out. We were going to go out, pick up some lunch, have a picnic. And so we're like, let's go. And then he goes out and then he's like, I can't wear these shoes, right? And we're like, oh, just put the sandal strap on top and you can wear it. And it's easy. Everyone does it. And he's like, no, I will not do it. And so he starts crying and he's laying on the ground, in our driveway, just crying, saying, I'm not going to wear these shoes. And we're like, okay, fine, don't wear any shoes. But then he's saying, okay, I won't wear shoes. But then I'm like, oh, but they won't let you in the supermarket without shoes. And so he's crying and crying because he he wants to go to the supermarket, but he doesn't have shoes to wear. And so we're trying to help him, but nothing is helping him because it's like there's no solution. And he wants to wear the shoes normally, but we're like, it's going to open up your wound if you wear it normally because your blister was there. And he's insistent, he's crying and crying. And so he's crying for like 15 minutes. And we're like, okay, fine, it's like, like do whatever you want. And like, that's what he wants to do, right? And then we're like, oh, help. And so all this time, this is like the common thing. We're all trying to find solutions. So it's like a problem solving. So my wife is giving ideas, like even my 3-year-old has ideas. It's like, I have ideas. What can we do? What can we do? Let's not go, whatever. And then we finally come up with an idea of, oh, let's go to a shoe store first, and let's pick up some shoes, and then we'll go to a picnic and to supermarket. So he was super happy with that. But it was like a great example because we let him just wrestle with it and collaborate for a solution. Ultimately, it's his decision, right? He was the person, who owned that decision.
I do have an epic tantrumer, and
Yeah.
It's interesting because it wasn't really tied to age because my kids are 5 years apart, and even the little one never tantrumed as much as the big one.
Yeah.
But I did come up with a solution on my own that really worked, and it also worked to keep me calm and my husband calm. Like epic tantrums, even in public, TSA line. It's like really like heightened stress. But the solution I came up with is I don't know how I had this idea, but I think I was reading a book on anxiety and how like one of the best things you can do when you have anxiety is to let your anxiety play it out. In fact, ramp it up. Let the anxiety be even worse. And so she was tantruming, and I said, that's it. We're gonna make a tantrum chart. We were going on vacation, and I was just like, I knew we were gonna have daily tantrums. So I was like, I'm gonna make a tantrum chart, and every time you have a tantrum, like I'm gonna score it. And the harder you tantrum, the higher your score. And if you get a 5, like I'll give you a treat. Because our previous vacation was really hard. Like everything was, it's just like this child is just like came out a fighter. She's just a fighter. And so she's like starts tantruming. I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's kind of like a 1 or a 2. I'm like, come on, like put your legs into it, And eventually, like she'll start trying to tantrum more, which is because what would happen is she'd lose control. And then when I was like, hey, you got to do this harder, then she was taking control.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she was in control, and she inevitably started laughing. I'm like, oh, I was like, you didn't get to it. And so, and actually that vacation we had, like they went down, like there was like barely any, 1 or 2, the first couple. And then after that, she stopped doing it. And it was like, you did have, like, I don't know, she did have control.
Yeah.
But would frequently flip to a place, like the switch would go off and she would cross this line, and then she lost control of but that was really helpful. And I think it was really
awesome.
For
That's crazy.
us as a couple, because
it
sometimes you're just like, you're trying to stay calm, and you just get mad because you're like, why are you do this all the time? And like, so and then so I could say to my husband, like, what do you think? Is it like a 2 or a 3? I don't know. It's not really that loud though. She wasn't allowed to break anything. One thing we said, we were like, you can't break anything if you forfeit the game if you break anything.
Yeah, that tantrum thing is awesome though. I love it.
Oh, that was so fun. I appreciate it. I'll just check out your parenting videos. I think that's so awesome and groundbreaking to just not be an authoritarian.
And my father was the ultimate authoritarian. So yeah, I felt that there had to be a different way.